All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. So thank you for joining into this session. So yeah, you got me. I'm Jeremiah. I'm one of the here in Form Assembly. I'm from the implementations team. We also have Tom here, the great Tom G from. For this session, we'll run through the webhook connector and the file storage solutions. So yeah, um, we'll start off from like just high level overview of the storage connectors. We're going to do some live demos, and then Tom will also do the live demo. And then towards the end of this session, we'd open the floor for any questions and comments you might have. Right, let's start us off with the storage connectors. All right, so yeah, what are the file storage connectors? And we do have four integrations or built-in integrations, and those are the most commonly used as the Google Drive. We also have built-in integration with Microsoft's SharePoint, and some common use cases where you would want to use the file storage connectors are if you want to be organized or automate the sending file uploads to those endpoints. Yeah, you might as well want to utilize the file storage connectors. And yeah. So yeah, automate things. Automation is the key for 2025. And yeah, why don't we do some live demo here? All right, let me share my screen. Alrighty, so we're going to create. Oh, by the way, here's our workflow only connector. So it means that we can only utilize the file storage connectors within workflow. Okay, so we're going to be using this form. Tom will also be using the same one. And then let's go create a workflow from scratch. So let's label this with the form fast 2025 storage connectors. And setting it up is easy as 1, 2, 3, 4. So first step is we need to add the form, basically. So it is ideal to build the form first before you go into building the workflow. So let's choose that form. And as you can see here, and if you want to add right away the thank you message or the notification email, but for this session, be choosing any. So I'll just click confirm. Then it's now time to add those connectors. So let's start off from adding a Dropbox connector. Then once we've added that connector, of course, we need to authenticate it or authorize it with an active box account. Before we do that, let me go to this tab just to show you that there's nothing using to authenticate or to authorize that Dropbox connector. And the authorization, once you've authorized Dropbox connector, it should show you the existing go from scratch. So I will click now the new authorization button here. Fast 2025 Dropbox. Just need to click on authorize here. And we just need to continue with the authorization. So we just need to give Dropbox and access to form assembly and the other way around. So we just need to click on continue, and then click allow. Now that the connector is authenticated, next thing that we need to do is go to the configuration tab here. And then now this is where we can choose what folder the file upload will go into. Field in our form will take in the file. So here on the parameters, send file, we just need to choose the file upload field in our form. And for the destination, we can choose to, or it will show you all of the folders that you have on that Dropbox account. So for this one, since I don't have any folders here, it is, but then again, you can add subfolder to make those file uploads more organized. And for this one, just 2025. For the subfolder, by the way, you can get dynamic with the folder name by clicking this formula icon on the far right end of that text box. And here are the aliases that you can use actually to make the folder name dynamic. But for this example, or for this session, I'll just have a static folder name here. And then that's it. The workflow. And then we can test it out. So let's click this view button on the left-hand side. It should open the workflow. You just need to fill out these required fields here. So I'm gonna do formfest test, formfestfa.com. Just some here, the tree test, formfest city, zip code 12345, and this is now the file upload field that we've mapped in that Dropbox connector. And we just need to upload Homer's ID here, and then you can click submit. Okay, so it looks like the submission went through. We got the thank you page here. And now it's time for us to check our Dropbox account if the file actually went through. So let me just refresh this, and it created that FormFest 2025 subfolder, like what we've configured here in the workflow. And then if we open that subfolder, there is that ID that we just uploaded. Okay, let's try opening that up. Okay, there we go. That's the ID that we've uploaded onto the workflow, or to the form for that matter. And now on the same workflow, we can actually add more file storage connectors. So why don't we add a box connector, since I already had it here. So this is my box account. I only had the FormFest 2025 folder here. If I open it, I just have one PDF file in here. So yeah, let's use this same box account to authenticate a box connector. And like I mentioned, we can have multiple file storage connectors in one workflow. So below the Dropbox connector, I just need to add a new connector and then choose box. And pretty much the same thing that we did for the Dropbox connector. After adding the box connector, go to the authorization tab, click new authorization if it is the first time that you'll be connecting a box account. And let's name this FormFest 2025 box. Click authorize. Then same thing, we need to grant the permission so that the two systems or two softwares can talk to each other in layman's term. And then after the authorization, click on the configuration tab so that we can start configuring the box connector. And same thing for the parameters, send file. You just need to choose the file upload field in your form. And then for the destination, as you can see here, since I have that subfolder already in my box account, it's showing me two folders here, the root one and the subfolder. So I'll be choosing the root folder here and add a subfolder, but I will make it dynamic. So I'm gonna use the last name field or the alias of the last name field here, then save, and that's it. For the return variables, this is pretty much useful if you need to like return certain values, like if you want to return the URL for some instances that you have a colleague that you need that needs or who needs to access the file from their end. So you can return a public URL or a private URL. So this is what the return variables do. But then again, for this example, we'll not be doing that. So let me save the workflow and then test it out again. Right, same thing. FormFest box test. FormFestFA.com. Test. FormFest city. 2345. And same thing, we just need to upload a file to send to box. Right, let's click submit. Okay, so it looks like we went through. We got the thank you message again here. And now it's time for us to check the box account or my box account. Let's just refresh this one. And here we go. Based off of the last name that we've inputted on the last name field, we created that subfolder. And again, this is based on how we set it up here in the workflow. And if we open that folder, there's that Homer ID that we've uploaded onto the form, like so. Alrighty, so that is how we can easily or simply add the Dropbox and Box connector to our workflow and how it works. Also, again, just a reminder, we do have other file storage connectors that you can utilize, like the Google Drive or the Microsoft SharePoint. So that's it. That's all for the storage connectors. So tossing it over to Tom for the webhook integration.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join this session. That was great to see the file upload connectors that we have available. It can help you on, for example, storage costs. Rather than sending it and hosting those files in Salesforce, send them to your Dropbox or any of the other ones that are available. So now we'll cover the webhook portion of this session. It's a little bit more advanced, but it does open doors for a lot more integrations with either in-house systems or other systems that previously wasn't available. So we'll go through the slides briefly, and then we'll get straight into it, and we'll show you a live example. So first of all, what is the webhook connector? It's a new step that's available in the workflow. So again, if you do have a form, you can place the form in your workflow, and then you can add the connector step after that, along with any other action you want to do. And it will allow you to send any information that you've obtained during your workflow over to the system you're connecting with. So anything that has an API that allows information to be received without the use of a driver, for example, because that requires additional installations and processes. But anything that you can send a JSON request to, or form data, or URL encoded information to an endpoint URL, that can then be pushed to that system. So now you have that interaction without needing to do anything manually. Why would you choose to use this? Again, reiterating that this will help with moving information between systems and sort of taking out the manual work needed that currently you would need to do to move it from one system to another. You can take data from responses, send them over to where it needs to go on one system, also send it to your other connectors and your file uploads, for example, all automated within your workflow. Just a slide here of a few logos just to let you see that these are some proven integrations that we've used the webhook connector for. So we've been able to send information from a form in a workflow to any of these systems. And today we're going to be focusing on Airtable as the example. But as you can see, there's things like Zoom, so you can have registrants register for Zoom meetings, add them to webinars, etc., using this webhook connector. So now we'll just jump over to the demo. As I mentioned, this will be a little bit more in depth, so bear with me. Okay, cool. So you can see the screen. Great. So we'll start here in our form assembly instance, and we have our workflow here. So as I mentioned, this is a workflow exclusive connector. You can simply pick up your current form, put it in a workflow, and then add those connector steps after it. And this is the workflow we're going to be working with. So I'll zoom in just so you can see each step. The first step we're going to do is the same form that Jeremiah showed. So we're going to just capture some information and the ID. We'll then show a thank you page. And then we're going to move on and building on the file storage connectors. Here we're going to use the Google Drive. So I want to send a copy of that ID to our Google Drive as well. And I'll show you that. And then we lastly have a webhook connector step. As mentioned, it's as simple as clicking add a step. In the connector, you have the webhook. In there, we'll configure everything. So we do support different types of authorization. So again, let me add a new step rather than edit that one. It supports OAuth. So if I was to say here, new authorization, name it whatever's relevant. So if I was doing one for Zoom, I'd put that in there. And then here we can have OAuth authentication, basic, which is username, password, or an API key. So if we were to choose OAuth, it's going to ask you for some information, which anyone using this should be used to this and what it needs. You will refer to the documentation from whatever service you're connecting to. And then you would authorize, you'd get your pop-up and you accept it. And then that would be stored, ready to use. Going forward, you'd be able to choose it from the drop-down list. You do also have the option of choosing no authorization, which is what we've actually chosen for this one. And that's because Airtable expects the authorization token to be sent over in the header. So I've chosen none here, but then actually when I send over to the endpoint, you can see here we have custom headers available, and I'm able to put my token in here. I won't show all of it, obviously, but we can add any custom headers that we need to there, and that will be passed over with the request we send. So in regards to documentation on how you would find this information, there's many tools that you can use. Postman is one that will help you, because some you will need to obtain that key first, and again, some will be able to provide it for you. Airtable, for example, are able to provide it for you. Within the account, you'd come to this section for access token, you'd generate it, and then you'd take it. This is a lot longer than it is there. It's not just that, but I use that value, and that's my API token. The system that you would use, you'd grab the right thing that you need to authorization, as long with setting the scopes that you want to have that accessible to. Most systems do have great documentation. So here, for example, part of the information that I need to send over, I need to know the ID of my table in Airtable. So how would I find that? Well, I looked at their documentation. They gave step-by-step information on how I can find that, because here is my table. You can see it's empty at the moment. I'll refresh it. I have no information, but the idea is I want to send this form out. I want to capture people's information. I want to take their IDs and put it in Google Drive. And then I want to have this list on this CRM because I'm using Airtable for that information. And now we can do that, whereas previously we couldn't. Again, in this demonstration, we're going to be creating a record. So I've come to the API documentation for Airtable to see how I would do that. And it's told me, okay, I need to send a post request to this URL, making sure obviously I put my information here. And you can see where you get that from, again, using their documentation. Any system you're going to use, just refer to whatever they tell you to do in order to get the information, and then you'll plug that in on the workflow. So it's telling me exactly what I need to send. It's giving some examples over here of the body that needs to be in the request that I'm sending. So over here, as you can see, I've got my webhook connector selected. I breezed over the authorization, but that's where you do authorization, depending on the method you're using. And then here we have our configuration. So I've set a precondition. I only want this step to occur if the email field is not blank, because I don't want to send it to my system unless I have their email. I've actually set that field to be required anyway, but this is just an additional step for any reason that's missing, to not send information that's not necessary. I then have my parameters. So this is where I'm sending the information to. So this will be a post request. You'll notice that there are patch, put, and get. We currently only support pushing data to systems and patching rather than get, but that further down the line, hoping for some updates that will allow us to retrieve information as well. But currently in this demonstration as well, we're going to be showing pushing information to those systems. This is the URL endpoint that I'm sending to. So again, using the documentation that I'm using today, the create records is what I want to do. It's told me this is where I need to send the information, and it needs to be in this format. So I'm following that. So I'm sending it to the URL they mentioned, obviously unique to me for my table with that extra information. You have content type choice. So again, you can choose form, data, URL encoded or raw. JSON is the requested form type needed here. Again, it told me in here that's what it needed. And then we can move down to custom headers. So as mentioned, the authorization for this specific integration for Airtable, it should be sent over as a key here, as a header called authorization. So I'm able to add that here. I didn't need to actually add it here as an API key. They wanted it as authorization in the header, so I can do that here. And then we move down to the body. So the information we want to send to that system. So here you can see using the syntax, the layout, exactly what they're expecting it to be. Again, from here, they wanted it to, JSON opens with their curly braces, and then they have a certain layout. I've followed that for the information I need for my fields. So you can see in my table, I have first name, last name, email, phone, address, city, and zip code. So again, you can see first name, last name, email, phone. That all matches up to my table. Again, you'll just refer to whatever you need. And these bubbles you can see sort of in this dark blue bubble, these are actually fields from my form. So the information I want to send to the first name column will be whatever it is in the first name field. And that can easily be done by just choosing it from up here. And you're inserting it into the body that's being sent. Likewise for the rest, so you've got last name, email, phone, all being sent over. So then we can send the information that was obtained on the form over to the system. You've also got your error handling tab. For any reason the system you're sending to does hit an error, you can choose another step to go to. So maybe you'll add a conditional path here and send them to a different path that says there was an error. We're going to reach out to you, or please reach out to us at this phone number. You can put a custom message in there, just giving you a little bit more error handling control when it comes to if during the flow you did run into an error. So now that's all set up, you can see here, we're going to walk through this workflow. We'll submit a submission. I'm expecting a thank you page. I'm expecting the ID to be in Google Drive. Let me briefly touch on that as Jeremiah just went over it. This is the option for Google Drive. It's the same thing. We've authenticated to our Drive. Configuration is what file you're sending, because maybe you've got various file uploads on your form. So I'm choosing this one. Where do you want it to go? And then a subfolder. If the subfolder name, so this one is dynamically named based on the formula. So I'm using fields from the form. So this is the first name and last name. If the subfolder name matches the one that you already have, it will place the document in that folder. So what does that mean? That means if this first step was creating the folder Homer Simpson, and then another step for something else of his, will also say, okay, use first name, last name. That same folder will have the same name, therefore it will put it in the same folder. It doesn't make duplicate folders. It just goes one level deep from the destination folder and then the subfolder, whatever name you give it. So that's good for if you are having various steps in your flow. Maybe the first one collects an ID, and then further down the line, another document. It can go to the same folder rather than having many subfolders for one person. So that's the Google Drive part. And then obviously we'll have our webhook. So I'll expect the data to come into this table, which is currently empty. So let's walk through the workflow. I'll quickly open this is the Drive. As you'll see, it's empty at the moment. So we're expecting the ID to go there as well. So we'll keep it relevant. Okay, and then we'll add the ID. So we've completed the form and we submit. So now we should be redirected to the thank you page. So thank you, Homer Simpson, for submitting details. We'll be in touch soon. So now if I go back to here, we can look at our response page. We'll see that that's gone through successfully. We've got a check mark. And in the response, you can see that each step of the way of my flow has a successful completion. If I was to go to the Drive now and refresh this, you can see the folder for Homer Simpson's been created, and there's his ID. So that's working as expected. And then here's our Airtable, and you can see that's already refreshed itself. We have Homer's details populated into the CRM that previously we couldn't connect with. And now we can seamlessly, without any manual intervention, into the workflow. So I think that covers all steps that I had in the demo. We've shown the Google Drive, we've shown the webhook. And yeah, hopefully this will open up a lot of possibilities for you to start using and connecting with other systems that will allow for those post requests to come in. And yeah, I'll pass it back to Jeremiah just so we can wrap up, and we'll take some questions.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tom. So yeah, just to add something to the file storage connectors, just a reminder, since this is workflow native type of connectors, it is purchased add-on for team plans and higher. So yeah, it is available for those kind of from team plans and up. And yeah, there is a couple of questions here. I saw one. How many files can we send over to SharePoint? Yeah, at first, when it will, the file limit actually, or the number of files actually,
I'm not sure if we've lost Jeremiah, but I'll pick up from there. So yeah, file uploads, what's the limit? There is a 30 to 35 megabyte limit of accumulative form uploads on per form response, meaning that you could send 20 files on one form, but the cumulative size will be 30 to 35 megabytes. And then you can send any kind of, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't send more, as in the first form in your workflow, you could send 5. The next form, you can send 5. The next one, 20. It's 35 per form response, not per workflow. So you could split that over a couple of forms if you needed to. And if you're doing just the one, then yes, it would be a 35 megabyte limit.
Nice. And Tom, I'm here. I can help you with some questions. During your demo, Nancy asked if the table you were referencing is in form assembly.
No, so that table that we're referring to is Airtable. So Airtable is another CRM, another software platform that many customers use to store data. It's an alternative to things like Salesforce, HubSpot, etc. And so that table that I'm showing was just my test table made in Airtable. And I'm showing you how we can use our forms on the front end in a workflow to capture all the information, automate sending it where it needs to go, and populate that database on Airtable.
Fantastic. Sandeya asks, can we link the document that you uploaded to Google Drive to or from Airtable? Can we, reference those?
You could send so using the return variables that Jeremiah briefly touched on, you can return the URL that comes back from the Google Drive where you sent the file. So effectively the URL that takes you to that file. And you could send that over to Airtable. Airtable may allow for sending files over there, but it would be down to their documentation. I'm not sure on what they expect as the format type, if it can accept base 64 interpretations of file uploads. It's something you may need to investigate with Airtable, but the webhook does allow you to send sort of file uploads that are sent in a base 64 representation. So if the receiving service is able to move that back into a file, then you shouldn't have a problem. But again, it's something that you should look into on the system you're trying to connect to.
Yeah, speaking of other systems, Stephen asks, can the webhook connector be configured to work with systems like Snowflake?
Yes, actually, I was told a few weeks ago from one of our product managers here that one of our customers have successfully connected to Snowflake using the webhook. So Snowflake is an SQL system. Usually you need a driver involved, but Snowflake does have REST API endpoints, which means it has the endpoint expecting the data to come in and it will do its thing with it at the other end. So yes, we do have a customer that's currently using the webhook with Snowflake.
Fantastic. I think that's probably, if you get nothing else from this session, the exciting thing about our webhook connector is all of the possibilities. If your system has the endpoints we need, you can send data there. Let's see. We answered Juan's question. Vanessa asks, where do you connect your box accounts? Can you connect more than one, like test box accounts?
Yep, you can. You can add as many authentications as you need throughout the flow, or even not necessarily using them in the flow, but when you're setting up the configuration, it will ask you to click a button, you set up new, and then you can say, okay, this is my test account. Then it will ask you to log in. So you'd log into Box with your test account credentials. Okay, and now that's saved with the alias saying my test account. And then going forward, you can just click from the drop-down list from those saved authorizations and flip it between the two if you need to. Or in your workflow, you can also add different paths. So you could have a testing path that you've set up and a normal path, and then obviously you can do whatever you need there to make it dynamically route the right way.
Nice. Love that flexibility. So Adea asks, and this is sticking with our storage connector specifically, can you save files to existing subfolders as opposed to creating new subfolders?
Yeah, so I briefly touched on that in the example of Google Drive or any of those connectors. When you can send to a destination folder, and then you can create a subfolder in that folder. So you cannot go sort of multiple levels down, but you can go to the first folder you've chosen and then either straight in the root folder or create a subfolder. If you're creating a subfolder and that already exists, it will place the document in that same subfolder. So if it has the same name, it will go into the same folder. This is great when you're using something that uniquely identifies the person responding. So if there is a customer ID on the form and you're using that as the subfolder name, no matter where you do it, if it's using that as a subfolder name, all documents will go to that folder rather than making a new one for every single one.
Love that. And that was the second part of their question was, could we use dynamic content to save responses from some of our agencies to save responses to their subfolder if the file name of the submission matches the folder name? And it sounds like that's the exact use case.
Yeah, for example, in that use case, they would have an agency ID in a hidden field somewhere, let's say, or they enter it themselves, and you would use that field's value as the name of the folder. So no matter what step it gets to, it's always trying to use that name, so it's putting all files in that folder.
Yes, and Adea got back to us. They say, awesome. So we just have to match the folder name to the existing subfolder. Love it. Thanks. We love it too, Adea. That's what we love to hear. Lindsay has a couple of questions I'd love to get to. Lindsay asks, can we use a middleware ETL to connect? And I'm not familiar with that abbreviation.
Me neither. So let's do a quick search.
All right. That's why I love working with solution engineers.
Okay. Extract, transform, load. All right. So you can send it to any URL that's expecting the data. So if you're saying there's a middleware, like a middle part of the system that you want to send to, as long as that's expecting the data in the JSON format, you can send it to whatever you want. So for example, if you have a Lambda set up on AWS that says, okay, I'm expecting data this way, a gateway on AWS that then moves it to a Lambda. You could say, I'm expecting data like this. We send it as JSON, but then it can do its thing and then move it wherever it needs to go. So we can send to whatever endpoint in that format. We just won't process it as such. We're going to push it to the system that needs to do it. And that's the thing that we can send many to.
Okay, fantastic. Their question dives a little bit deeper into API, and I'm not certain that we can cover this in today's session, but I'm going to go ahead and ask the question. They ask, can Lindsay export all information on, they have 1,000 or more forms via an API or some other tool? And that's not something that our webhook, can help you with, is exporting data out of existing forms. This sends specific responses. But Tom, are we able to support that at all?
Yeah, so that's actually branching on the side of the API for form assembly rather than using the webhook to connect to a system. We do have an API available that will allow you to do things like capture the forms elements and responses. So you may want to look into that to see if it covers your use case. And you may be able to pull all the information. So depending on what information you're looking for, you may be able to use that and see if that helps.
I'll go ahead and I'll send Lindsay some documentation. Lindsay, thank you for your question. I believe, we have one more question. Can the webhook connector be used for sending form data and file uploads to SharePoint versus using the SharePoint connector that only sends file uploads to SharePoint? Oh, good question.
So you can use the webhook connector to connect to many things. Microsoft being a massive ecosystem, they obviously have many APIs. So I think Power Automate and things like that. You could probably set up Power Automate to give you a URL to send your information to that, and then that can move it where it needs to go, and use the SharePoint one just for the file uploads, as that's what it's designed for, as it's a file storage connector. But you've got a few options there. Again, like I say, the endpoint, the API you're connecting to, the webhook is opening that door to allow you to move the information along the line. The thing that's receiving it can then do whatever it needs to do. So if you need to go really in depth and start doing those sort of processes, you may be able to do that on your side if you have the resources. But the key here is that we've opened that door to actually move it along the line to where it needs to go to.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that does it for our questions. Tom, thank you for covering that. We always benefit from your expertise. Love having you on these calls. Before you go, audience, we do have some additional documentation. I shared a link with Lindsay on the question of the API. Our help center is filled with fantastic documentation to answer most of the questions that you have to cover. So if you're interested in learning more about any of the connectors you saw today, use the links in the Resources Center to hop on over into our documentation. They'll provide you all, step-by-step configuration options and answer some of the questions that you had in our Q&A today. Tom also has provided a blog from Postman on better understanding APIs. So if you're just kind of entering this territory, some of us are clearly experienced enough to be working with ETLs, and you can stump us. But for the rest of you who are just beginning your API journey and want to get a sense of what you can do with the webhook connector, specifically if you have critical systems that we don't offer connectors for currently, and you need to get information from your forms seamlessly into those systems, seamlessly and securely, I should add, because our webhook connector is fantastic. I encourage you to read that blog and then jump into our webhook documentation. The possibilities, I don't want to say are endless, because there are ends to most things, but as we mentioned with Snowflake, we are discovering new systems that we can now connect to with our webhook connector that we couldn't before. And I think you'll find that with a little ingenuity and the webhook connector, you'll be able to seamlessly integrate form assembly with most of your critical systems. Before we go, I believe Jeremiah was able to rejoin. Jeremiah, do you want to hop on and say goodbye with Tom?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about what happened back there. But yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining this session. Thanks, Josh, for hopping in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom,
next one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Jeremiah. And Tom, you had a note on one question we got right before we're going to leave. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, First of all, thank you everyone for your attention and joining this session. Hopefully it's opened your eyes to what you can do and automate some more services between your form assembly instance. Someone did mention when will this be available. These connectors are already available. They're add-on features that you can reach out to us to find out more information. So yeah, it's nothing that's sort of currently maybe coming in the future. These are already out working. We have customers using it. So please reach out if you'd like more information. And thank you again for attending, and hopefully we'll see you in some more sessions.